Good evening, everybody. My name is Yael Patir. I'm J Street's Israel Director, broadcasting to you from Tel Aviv. Thank you for joining us. It's late evening in Israel and probably sometime around noon afternoon for you guys. This is a call which is part of a series that we are holding in the past few months at J Street called Solutions at 70. And the aim of the calls is really to look at solutions to problems and challenges that we are facing today. And today, I think we have a particularly interesting and exciting call with two individuals that are really on the front lines of Israeli change-making on the political front line. People who are thinking, acting, organizing, strategizing ways in which to bring about political change and ways in which to bring to life and boost and revive the Israeli peace movement. They are very complementary, I think, and I'm also proud to say that the three of us are very much working in coordination and happy to share with you that J Street and many people in the US are very interested, engaged in, and supportive of such efforts for change that are taking place in Israel. So let me start by presenting them very briefly. Mikhael Manekin is the director of Israel Tomorrow, which is a strategic communication company, and he's also the director of the Alliance for Israel's Future, which is a consortium of donors, organizations that are focusing on building new progressive political leadership in Israel. He has vast experience in founding organization. He was in Molad, which some of you probably know, and also in Breaking the Silence. He was the director of Breaking the Silence, and recently co-founded a very interesting political group, a progressive caucus, which is operating within the Labour Party in Jerusalem with his wife and 3 children. Avi Buskila is the director of Peace Now, which is Israel's largest and longest standing peace movement. You probably know this. Before joining Peace Now, Buskila led a number of social and political campaigns, focusing on a variety of political issues, but some of them on the LGBT rights, or I should say LGBTQ nowadays, rights, and rights of self-employed workers. He served in the army for many years and was for, I think, 15 years. And became famous as a commander for an event that happened in '97 in Hebron, which made him a celebrity for a few days. I'm going to ask Mikhael to begin by giving us a broader picture, and then we will move to Avi to hear more specifically about the work, about thoughts about the peace movement and Peace Now. What we're going to do is that we're going to give both of them about 10 minutes to speak. I'm going to ask them some questions. Some of them are questions that we got from you before, and then I'm going to take your questions. You can send your questions while we're talking to info@jstreet.org, and I will get those questions and deliver them to our speakers. While we're speaking now, I'm not sure if the Likud rally has ended or not, but there was, until probably in the last few hours, a rally of Likud activists held to support Prime Minister Netanyahu in these difficult days of investigation for him, in which Netanyahu did a very Trump-like, or maybe Trump did a Netanyahu-like speech in which he attacked the media and the fake news for being the aggressors, and basically blaming them for his situation, something that you in the US now know very well, and it's highlighting, Mikhael, similarities that we see between the US and between Israel in terms of the government, and perhaps also highlighting opportunities of the progressive camp or the alternative camps on both sides. So our question for today is really, how do we grow a strong and winning progressive camp, peace camp in Israel? It's a very general question, but I put it at your front door, Mikhael, and I give you 10 minutes, please.
So first of all, hi everybody, and thanks for joining this call. I hope the reception is fine, and try to talk slowly, which is, I'm notoriously known. So look, regarding the primary challenges of the progressive camp, I'm always a bit cautious while trying to enter that. I think about both the opportunities and where I and my friends are focused. I think this is actually a really interesting and I know this is a word which we sometimes don't like to use enough, but optimistic for progressives in Israel, in the sense that there are a lot of, everywhere I look, I see a lot of interesting things happening, a lot of activists who are growing in different fields, a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, and I know a lot of times what we get media is I know a lot of times what we get in the media is that, you know, doom and gloom scenarios, and I think there is obviously that, but I do think there's a lot of positive things happening as well. In that sense, and I know this is a bit vague, so I'll try to expand a bit more in a second. But I think there is a general sense that the right is very much on the defensive, and Yael, you mentioned that. But there's the sense that the right is fighting a defensive battle, and on the other side, there's a renewed energy, which we haven't seen in the past. I think Gabay being elected to the head of the opposition got a lot of people excited. I think the protests happening around Bibi's corruption Saturday night, which Avi's because he's involved with, is very exciting. A lot of internet campaigns which are exciting, and so on. What we're focused on at the Alliance for Israel's Future, I'll just say a bit about that, is that for a very long time, I think there's been too little coordination between a lot of up-and-coming progressive groups. We're trying to work on that. Basically, the Alliance for Israel's Future, I would say, is an incubator and an accelerator for up-and-coming progressive leaders. And what we're trying to do is to see how Avi and people like Yael and others have a better platform about what we want and about how to build a stronger professional network with each other. It's very clear to us that the progressive side is putting a lot of good ideas out there, be it on economic issues, be it on security issues, and so on. The question is, how do we manifest that in a more strategic way? And what we're trying to focus on is how to do that, basically sort of basic building blocks of building a functioning camp, and perhaps I would even say a functioning Israeli progressive elite. So at least to summarize, point, I would say terrible. Perhaps the situation is that we see the terrible policies of the right. The energy is happening, and where the us not on the right's very much on the defensive, and conversely, progressives are longer, thinking of new ways to have conversations with more constituencies. New leaders are on a regular basis, and we need to be paying attention to that and to be thinking about how do we get, and how do we make sure that these next couple of years are about growth and about that type of positive energy. Yael mentioned that I was I directed Molad in the past, and I had also the opportunity to direct Breaking the Silence in the past. So at a certain point you realize you've been doing this for a bit of time. I do believe that this is sort of the best time that I remember in terms of that progressive energy, and that's something to think about. I think this is going to take some time, but I think we're on the right path. And because this is a conversation with J Street, also a word about two states and peace and so on, and then maybe I'll finish at least my. Pass it on to Avi. The situation, we have a very right-wing government, as you know. We have a very right-wing government in your country, as you know. The situation is still static in the sense that it's not, nobody's making huge decisions to turn, to annex the territories, to give up on the two-state solution, to think about, from a policy perspective, alternative visions in a serious way, and so on. And I think testament to how strong the solution that we're putting on the table is. A lot of times our camp says, and I think wrongly, situation's been bad for so long, perhaps our solution isn't a good one. I think the fact that even in the most right-wing conditions, our solution is still the only relevant one, should be one that it should be a premise that gives us hope. So as anybody who knows me for the last couple of years, that means our challenge is a political one and not a policy one, maybe meaning we need to think about longer and not how to change our ideas. Part of that is rethinking about how to talk about our ideas and maybe frame things differently and so on. But we primarily, I think, need to be thinking about strategies and tactics. So that's, I guess, it for now. Yael and Avi.
Mikhael, before I move to Avi, can you maybe give 2 or 3 examples of these new initiatives, energies that you see in the progressive camp?
Sure, I'd love to. I'll give 4. The first is what I mentioned: the protests happening every Saturday night. They're happening in Petach Tikva, and Shabbat comes out late. So as a religious Jew, I can't go to Petach Tikva, but there are satellite protests happening in Jerusalem as well, which at least part of my family frequents every week. There's an energy happening, and what I think is interesting there is that it's happening on a lot of different demographics, at least age-wise. There are young people there. There are people there who are, in their 40s, 50s, 60s. But I think it's very clear that there's an energy around Netanyahu, which hasn't been in the past. That's example number 1.
Mikhael, say 2 sentences, sorry, about these demonstrations. I don't think that they're getting attention in the US at all.
Oh, I imagine, as you probably know, well, you know what, yeah, if it's okay, I know that Avi's much more involved in leading a lot of this, so perhaps he'll speak better on it than I, if that's okay with you, Avi. Let's say a second example of a group that I really like and people who are doing really interesting new media work. They don't have a name in English, but they're called Strengthening Progressives Online. And it's basically a group of people who are in their early to mid-20s primarily, who are just very active in mobilizing new media to both give positive reinforcement to our politicians when they do the right thing, and they do the right thing quite a lot, and both give I would say negative responses to things when they're happening on the right wing side. But there's an energy of a very social media savvy young Israelis who I think the third thing I would add is that there are a lot of new groups in terms of constituencies that we haven't seen in the past. So both of you know, for example, Mikhael, who works with us, who belongs to ultra-Orthodox left. But things that I get really excited about is when you suddenly hear that there are Haredi or ultra-Orthodox progressive activists focusing on, from occupation issues to issues which have to do with teachers' rights and so on. I think is really interesting and inspiring. And so that would be example number 3, and example number 4, which leads, I guess, back to the work to doing the alliance, is that there's just a bunch of people running organizations. So I'm very excited about Avi running Peace Now. I'm very excited about Mickey Gibson, who just became the CEO of the New Israel Fund. I'm excited about Uri Kedar, who was employed at J Street and is now just became the head of Israel Chofshit. Mikhael Margaliot, who's running the new CEO of the Women's Caucus. They're just a really, really good people out there who are just inspiring to watch them work, and to see how they work with media, and to see how they work with. I just get really excited about that. So, and I'm glad that I have the opportunity to work with them, on a day-to-day level. But that is not something that I remember from the past. There's always been really good people out there, but just the immense strength of people that came out of nowhere, and they're all over the place, is just really exciting for me.
Great. Thank you for the examples.
Sure.
Avi, I'm going to, before I give you the floor, one of the questions that was sent to us in advance of the call was the question, I'm not sure who asked it, but was a question about whether the Israeli peace camp can reach the Mizrahi community. And is there space for class politics in Israel today? So we should tell you a secret that Avi is a Mizrahi. He is a son of 2 parents who made Aliyah from Morocco, and he grew up in a moshav in the northern periphery of Israel. When Avi joined Peace Now last year as a director, it was definitely a blow of wind of change. There was a lot of interest around the decision of the founders of Peace Now to bring Avi, who was considered a very unique pick to be the director of Peace Now. So what I want to ask you, Avi, is, now a year into the job, how do you see, what's your path forward for bringing back almost 500,000 people to the square for a Peace Now rally? And also, if you can include the possibility that you see of expanding to new communities, in particular the Mizrahi communities, but also others that are not, that the peace movement until now has not managed to reach.
Just a moment. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Good evening to J Street, and good evening to our friends from APN that I hope watching us now. Well, yeah, it's a very interesting question, because I thought to myself that somebody will ask it. I can tell you that after a year and almost 5 months, the Mizrahian community is definitely an open, I don't know how to call it, an open game that the left side can work in. I think I did hundreds of meetings this year, hundreds of talking with people, and I see a lot of people that want to join to the camp. We have to work on it. It's not, it will not come easy, and we can see that Prime Minister Netanyahu, even today, talk against the left and did that break between the Mizrahian and to the left wing. But I believe, and I can see results in my organization, people are joining us. A lot of people are joining us. A lot of people believe in the way. And as I said before, it won't be easy, but we should work and we should get them back, because in the beginning, the Mizrahian was in our side. We lost them in the way, but I think that the main values are still the main values. So I'm very optimistic about that point. But I want to talk about another 5 levels of work that we're trying to work on them in Peace Now, Shalom Achshav, and maybe it will answer that question again in the way. So in Peace Now, we believe that we have to work in 5 levels of doing. The first level is education. What we did in the past year, we worked in almost every city in Israel. We did a lot of meetings with groups. We talked personally with thousands of people, high schools, mechinot,
pre-army programs.
Pre-army, yeah, pre-army. And we talk almost in all the pre-army groups of Israel. And when you start to talk with those people, you see how you open the conversation and how it ends. And we understand that the education level is very, very important, because most of the people in Israel are not understand even you know, the basic of what it means to be a lefty in Israel, or what our values, what are the values of the camp. I heard people from those groups that asking me questions that you thought you never heard from people. So that's one level, very important. We will work next year even harder in that level, because we really, really believe that it can be changed. The second thing, or before I'm jumping to the second level, in that level, we opened this year a political center, or political education center. We call it Chazon, and Chazon builds a new leadership and speakers to the camp. We're trying to bring a new language. I talked about it in last year J Street conference, and I'm happy to say that it works. We just opened now the second course. The first one finished with 25 new leadership that works very hard now all over Israel. We're trying to bring language, very simple language, not academic language. We're trying to take all the values of the left and all that speaking about two-state solution and terror and security and all of that, and to make it very, very, very simple language, because I believe and we believe that if we'll make the understanding of the people easier, they will change their mind, and they will support us. I'm very proud in Chazon. It's extremely great project, and it works so well. The course that we opened now is just a woman course. We found great leadership, woman leadership all over the country, and it's really, really exciting. The second thing that Shalom Achshav works very hard on is the grassroots movement. Again, we are doing a lot of activities almost every week. Just in the last week, we did 2 demonstrations. One was before of the Minister Ardan house, and it was demonstration against the anti-democratic rules and activities that he did against those people in Petah Tikva, for example. The second was just yesterday morning in front of the Temple Mount, because of the trying that the government did to open the Temple Mount to Knesset members of Israel. And it was a really, really effective action. It was short, it was strong, and we saw a lot of success around it. The third level is the media. We always need the media, and we know that it's very hard to take a good time in the media, in a prime time, and in time that most of the people listening or watching, and it's very hard, but we are working on it very, very hard. I can tell you that my decision in the beginning of the year was to open the media to all of the people of Shalom Achshav, so we can do a lot of channels in the same time, and we don't have to jump from one channel to the other. And one of the work that we accept from those people in Chazon is to be ready and good enough to speak and to be at the media. The 4 level that we work, and I'm trying to do it better than we did last year, is the politic level. We had a lot of meeting with the left side Knesset members, and even from those from the middle, if something like that can happen. And we try to make them to say something about the situation. It could be something about the anti-democratic rules. It could be something about the occupation. It could be something about a 2-state solution. We are not accept at all anymore silence beside the left-wing Knesset members. And I met most of them in the past 2 months, and I told them that we are going to be very tough with them, and we asked them to say something. Because I think that even, I really agree with Mikhael, that the organizations work very hard and do a great job, but if we want to have a real support from the Knesset members, it will not affect the public in the right effect that we're trying to make. So that's the 4 level. The 5 level is coalitions. Mikhael talked about it, about his project. I'm trying to make a lot of coalitions, and it's most of the time different coalitions. We are looking for the target, and we think what better coalition for us to make in front of that target. I can give an example, the big demonstration that we did in Rabin Square for the 50 years of occupation. It was with the Labour Party and with Meretz and with Standing Together and with NIF and Breaking the Silence and Hadash, and it was a very big group of organization that works together, and we saw that if all the organization and the politicians are working together, we can bring 30,000 people to the square. And if we had more support, maybe we could bring more of that.
Avi, let me push myself in and ask you a question.
Yeah.
We're getting also really great questions from the people who are watching us, which I want to get to. You are obviously and amazingly bringing a lot of new energy and
just
creating a lot of new activities. Do you feel that there is something fundamentally different in your message that makes a difference?
Sorry, I heard just half of the question. If you can repeat.
I'm asking, do you think that there is something fundamentally different in your message, in your narrative? You were talking about it when you talked about the first level, about training spokespeople. But you didn't say something about what it is actually what is that different thing that you are, what is the shift in the way we talk about things that we are trying to do? If you can say something about that, and then I want to start asking you the questions that we're getting.
Okay, so I'll say something. I discovered this year that people are really, really looking for something that's similar to them. People are looking for something that talk to their heart, to their feelings, to their, I don't know how to say it, maybe inside values. And what we are trying to teach in Hazon is to tell a story, to take the situation of Israel, the political situation, the occupation, the economic situation, the security situation, and to find the points that those points are connecting to yourself, and from that point to tell the story to the people. I can give you an example. Yesterday, one of our students asked me, I have one session with them in the beginning of the course, and I did my session, and one student asked me, she said, Avi, I'm Ashkenazian. I became from a very good family with money, and I don't have any different story to tell. And I said, yes, but think how much people will appreciate that you, even with all those, with all your story, that you are really, really prepared to work for them. Think how much people will appreciate it, how much people will not take it for granted. It's a great story. You could sit on the pool and drink margarita, but not. You are here with us. You work very hard, and you are preparing yourself for harder work. And she looked at me, and it was amazing. Her eyes was shine, and she said, "Okay, I didn't think about it in that way." What I'm trying to say is that every story is good if he is authentic, if he comes from your heart, and if you will find the political range to make it, to tell it from that point. So that's one thing. The second thing is that we need to understand with who we talk. In every group that I'm going to talk, I'm trying to study before who is the people is standing in front of me. And if I know that those people are, most of them, soldiers or press soldiers, I will start with talking about my service in the army. because I know it will break the ice and it will make the conversation easier. And that's what we're trying to teach those students. I have to say it works extremely good. After the students finishing the course, we are leading them to the first meeting with audience, and we always have one of us with them. And I really can see the change after 3.5 months with people that came to the course and how they go out from the course, and we can see what the audience said. I think it's extremely success to teach people to tell the story in that way. And I'll finish and say that we have many colors of people in the camp, but most of the time we didn't use all those colors. We used in very specific color. And I think something great in the group that you, me, and Mikhael working together, we are all 3 different people in different color, and we are making a great difference in our work. So at the moment that we work together, I'm sorry for my hands, we can see the change happen. And Mikhael is totally right. Something happened in Israel. The people are getting awake and people start to ask questions. I can tell you that my family, a total right family, talking serious about not to vote for Netanyahu, talking serious about the new sound of the left camp, talking serious about that Netanyahu and the right are not the right answer for the situation of Israel. So if it came there, if it happened there, it happened everywhere.
It's the best thing that you can see it, from home and say,
Yeah.
and give that example. I'm going to combine 2 questions that we got. Elaine is asking, when we say progressive in American English, and in Israel we say smolanim. Are progressive really aligned with the peace camp? Do them focus on economy and mention that seems to be I would complete the lane and say maybe that seems to be like the exciting for recruiting people talk about the economy and sort of or not dealing with the occupation. And I will combine another, which was about whether, since Israel, that this is the Palestinian, isn't it very hard to unite people and recruit people to the progressive camp, the issue of peace? Should
I? Okay.
Mikhael, please.
Always, regarding the internal, before we talk about the U.S.-Israel divide, regarding, if I understood the question, regarding the internal, people more excited about X or are people more excited about Y? Activists get excited about what activists get excited about, and some activists get excited about gender issues, and some activists get excited about environmental issues and LGBT issues and economy and occupation. Yes, these issues are compartmentalized in the sense that one does or can focus on and not necessarily be involved in issues regarding occupation. I myself am in this business because I primarily care about occupation. But there are people who work on my staff who are for other reasons. All of that being said, I would say, first of all, I think there is a trend now more comprehensive and coherent as to your worldview, and also challenging those who aren't. Definitely among young progressives. A classic example is there are liberal groups in the Likud, specifically on LGBT issues, but also on issues of corruption, and falling out of that kind of behavior because it doesn't make as much sense as it would have publicly a couple of years ago. So that's in terms of, but I think the other side of that is, and I'd like to hope that the Alliance for Israel's Future is involved in that, is a social and professional network where, yes, Yehuda Greenfield does deal with Jerusalem and he deals with maps and so on, but he sits next to Yael Patir, who deals with the relationship between Israel and U.S. Jewry, or they sit with Rami Hood, who focuses on economic issues and so on. So the question is, how do we, thinking about political elites and political camps, how do we, even in some senses mechanically, create a atmosphere in which I understand that even though I care about one issue, my partner cares about, and then it already trickles down. And I think, work, for example, that Avi's been doing in Peace Now is that even though Peace Now is, considered the organization that does two-state work, you'll see them at protests on corruption because that's a camp issue. And that's something that you saw less of in the past. Again, this is a trend and there are other trends happening. And I'm obviously excited about, my trend or the trend that I'm part of. But I do think it's real. And I do think there's a lot to do there, and there's a lot that we can get out of it. The union
Mikhael,
world in Israel at all till a year ago, and there's so many lessons to be learned from there. So there, in terms of the Israeli thing, yeah.
Follow-up question. Also something we got from one of our viewers. As an academic and an Israeli American who travels the world, I often hear people say, but there is no left wing in Israel. There are even Israeli journalists that perpetuate this misconception. I know that it's a good question for you. What are you doing or hoping to do to convey your presence to the world in the press and otherwise?
Okay. I guess Yael and I are chuckling because we talk about this a lot. Primary challenge is on us as young progressives, and I in Israel. Honestly, our primary work is here, and as we get stronger, the hope is that there'll be a ripple effect, right? Outside of the country, but yes, somebody who tends to be very critical. I mean, both I think to myself, but also unfortunately sometimes to others. It's very easy to say, "Oh, these guys aren't pointing out enough, the type of work that I'm doing," or "Why don't that other group? Why don't they get out of the way?" or all sorts of things like that. I don't think that's the smartest way going about doing things. I think if people like Avi, if people like you, if people like the other folks who are around continue doing strong, great work that gains popularity in Israel, the hope is that we'll be able to do something more that'll ripple outside of the country as well. The same goes for issues which are really ideological. I'm as very progressive and unabashedly Zionist makes sense, I think, in a lot of, let's say, for example, American and even American Jewish audiences. And that's something which we need to create and manifest better in Israel for you guys to be able to say, oh, there are those people, they're doing the type of work that when we say we're Zionist, we identify with them. And, and we're just not there yet, but I'd like to hope that we're building on the right direction. And maybe sort of like a very specific plug regarding that question is that I'm actually flying to the US on Monday for 2.5 months. And I'll be based in New York. And I'll be happy to speak capacity and also in a public capacity with, anybody who wants to hear about the great work which is being done now on the progressive side in Israel. I mean, I can talk about, stuff that Avi's doing and stuff that other people are doing. And I think we need to get that word out there. And I think that's, that's part of the responsibility of Israeli activists.
Avi, I have a question to you.
I can say another.
We have 14 minutes.
14 minutes. Yeah. So I want to say just a short thing about what Mikhael said now. I think that the left camp of Israel didn't build a young leadership for years. Young left wing, most of the time, or progressive, most of the time, thought about doing a career and didn't think about politics. And I think that in the past 3 or 4 years, we are feeling the revolution begin. Young people from the left side saying, okay, politics is the thing that we need to do. And this is the reason that we feel the hope and that the ground is burning, because it's the first time after years that youngers in Israel say, okay, no high tech and no film and not music, politics. It's very important for our future. So I think that mix will affect the world and affect the progressive, the Jewish progressive in the world, and we'll feel the feedback of that in the next few years.
I want to have time for 2 more questions. One is a question that I'm thinking a lot about, and I'm sure you do too, that Charles is asking. And I think it's represented today in the new movements and the strategies that we see out there. He's asking for real political change. Is it more important to try to build the progressive left camp, which obviously I think it's what we are representing in this conversation more so, or to moderate and to appeal to voters from the center right? Avi, and then
okay.
Well, kach et ze Mikhael. I see that Mikhael is very exciting. I want him to answer that.
No, I don't know what's more important. I don't know. That's such a letdown from my excitement. But I don't know. I don't know what's more important. Probably from a sort of external perspective, both are equally important. Both strengthening the base and reaching, outside. So I don't think there's something better or something more important. And there are great organizations focused on doing work which is more centrist. Darkenu, for example. There are a lot of people who are doing important work also on a local and municipal level. And I think those things are important as well. I could say from my perspective, just as an activist, 2 things. One is that if this is what, at least from a personal perspective, and this isn't a strategic answer, it's a personal answer, that if this is what I'm going to be doing for my sort of entire life or entire professional career, be openly, and that means, taking a more maybe specific or, ideologically upfront side. It just strikes me weird to say, enact something that I'm not in order to appear different to an audience for a very long time, instead of just saying, hey guys, this is what I believe. I think it's really good for us. You know, so on a personal level, that's much more where I am. On a strategic, definitely specific level and short-term level, I think both are probably equally as important. But the second issue is that I do think there was a lot of work, which is a bit different, but there was a lot of work of, or a strategy among progressives for a very, very long time, progressivism. And that I don't believe in. That I don't think that works. I think it's viewed as inauthentic, and ultimately people don't buy it. And I think Avi's been so successful, for example, in such a short period of time, is that he managed to be both authentic in terms of who he is and where he stands, and at the same time, and I believe these things go together, respectful of who his audience is and who he speaks with, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, about that. So yeah, it's, you know, on a long-term level and on a personal level, I think there's a lot to be said for saying, you know, being on the left or being progressive or social democratic or however you want to call it, socialist, whatever word people use these days, as, you know, as activists and political operators, is to make our option exciting for as many people as possible. And I think definitely in the time that we live, authenticity is key to that. And people smell, you know, something which is not authentic from a very long way away. That's at least on a personal level and on a long-term level.
Avi, a question to you. Thank you, Mikhael. Specifically, we're talking about, there are really, I mean, Mikhael mentioned a lot of new directors that are coming in and bringing really new energy. And there's also new organizations that we saw. Darkenu is sort of a transformation of an organization into an organization with a different strategy. And the group of organizations that are trying to attract the center, we can also highlight Commanders for Israel's Security, and we can highlight Women Wage Peace. I know there's so there's also usually a lot of interest from people that are involved in J Street with grassroots movements and with organizing. And I think Women Wage Peace represent also an organization that is really bringing people from the grassroots level. So Avi, my closing question to you, as somebody who also leads grassroots movements, is what sort of, first of all, do you have any cooperation with Women Wage Peace or with other grassroots organizations? And do you work with, are there any like new mechanisms that you work with, micro-targeting, social media, data analysis? Are there also technical elements, not only new movements, and we talked about messages, we talked about new movements, are there also technicalities, new things that are coming into the field?
Okay. First of all, I have to say that I'd say something like that. There is a lot of movements in Israel, a lot of organizations, a lot of groups that works. What we are doing is, or what I see now as my main target, is to be able to make them work together. So if I understand that I don't have enough power in, for example, Jerusalem, I'll give a call to Standing Together, and I said, listen, I want to do a demonstration in Jerusalem. I need your people. I need you to lead there. I'll help you. I will support you. I'll bring my people, but I need you to lead that. And it's the same with Darkenu or with Women for Peace and with those commander groups. So that's for opening. The second thing is tactic and strategy. The tactic said, take people from the center and try to win. The strategy said, build a strong camp, so those people that leave you to the center will want to back to you. And if you ask me about technique, it's part of my technique. I'm trying to open Shalom Achshav in the media, in the new media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever. To open Shalom Achshav like a kind of museum tour. I'm saying to people from the center and from the right, meet with us. I'll take you to a short tour, and when you get out from that tour, you can decide. You can stay with us, or you can say that we are those left wing that not support Israel. And most of the time, when we are taking people to the settlements, or if we're talking people to speak with Palestinians, or if we are show them the facts, most of them start to think, and in the end, we meet them in our activities. So I can tell you that the last Chazon that just finished, we had 3 settlements that finished the course from 25 people, and they all going to speak the words.
Chazon, Avi, sorry.
Yeah.
Chazon is your program for training organizers, basically, in American terms.
Yeah.
I'm just saying for the people. Chazon is a program that you're doing to training people who will recruit people to the movement. So,
exactly.
So you're saying that out of 25 people who did the training, 3 were settlers?
Were settlers. 3 of them, they are settlers that ready to go out to the media and to the and to speak about their story, to speak about the process that they were doing with us and why they decide to work with us and to recruit people to our groups. So there is no one way to do that. We should mix all the ways all the time. We should mix all the organization all the time. If there is something that we should need to learn from the right side, is that in every point that they feel weak or that they are going to get hurt, they are working together. Everybody are working for one against one target, and it's amazing to see it. I'll finish with small example. Yesterday, Knesset member Yehuda Glick took words that we said about him in the Temple Mount, and he said that Shalom Achshav is the Hamas, the Israeli Hamas. And we
who Yehuda Glick is?
A Knesset member Yehuda Glick.
From?
From the Likud. I'm sorry. Yeah, from the Likud. Knesset member Yehuda Glick from the Likud. He saw our demonstration in the Temple Mount, and he saw what we wrote and said there, and he tweet a kind of poster that wrote there, or that confirm us to the Hamas. And we sent some SMS and tweets to our friends in the organization, and we did a very, very strong attack on his Twitter, on his Facebook, on his talkbacks in the media. And after 4 hours, Yehuda Glick sent or he tweeted again that he's sorry. It was not a good strategy to attack us, and that he is not confirm us to Hamas, and he took it down. And it was a great example to how in the moment that we all working together, we can affect and we can win in those, and people see it, and when people see it, they get energy, they get hope, and they want to work with us.
we have, that's a great example. We have, I'm stealing 2 more minutes to do what we always need to do at the end of such discussions, which is to answer the question of how our friends in the US can be helpful to our cause, to this change that we're trying to bring. So Avi, take half a minute, and then Mikhael take half a minute, and we'll wrap up.
So,
I want Avi to go first, and Mikhael, you to end.
Okay.
Okay. So first of all, I have to say a big thank you to our partners in the US, to APN. Most of them, I hope, looking at us, or some of them looking at us. I think that there is 2 points. One of them is the support in the organization. It's very important for us. It gives us the power and the energy to do another projects and another effective acts outside. The second thing is to support us with the government connections between the US and Israel, because it's very important. The power of the progressive Jews in the US is very important to the NGOs in Israel, to the civil society. And beside me, it's just those 2 levels. Thank you very much. Mikhael.
Yeah, well, I would say the bottom line is just to see each other as allies. And just like you should be asking, how you can help us get stronger. We should be asking how we can help, progressive American Jewry at the age of Trump get stronger, and that goes from everywhere in terms of having, these types of conversations where you get to know us better. But I'd really like to get to know better, for example, what organizations are doing now around Charlottesville and so on. I think maybe to sum up, I'll reconnect it to the beginning of the call, that I think this is potentially a very good time for progressive politics, and within that, progressive Jewish politics. And I see, J Street in many senses part of the same camp, or at least very close allies. So in terms of how to help us, is to get the word out there. Is an optimistic, progressive, realistic, working to try to get things better, that not all is lost, and that we're inviting you to be a part of that and to help us out. And the same goes to the other direction, that all us, when you need our assistance, support, policy and so on, from issues regarding anti-Semitism to issues regarding Iran, we should be sticking our necks out, just because it's the right thing to do, and also because you are our friends and allies, and that's how political allies work with each other. So, on an optimistic note, I think there's so much to be done on that level, to organizational, to camp, political camp relations and alliances with each other.
And I think I'll add to Mikhael that I think that it's also something new that we're seeing happening more and more in many different levels. These sort of, at least the conversation which is starting about how we can help each other and become better allies.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to Mikhael and Avi, and thank you everybody for allowing me to steal 5 more minutes. It was really fascinating and probably one of the more optimistic conversations I heard recently, and I hope the spirit can, persevere despite all the Netanyahus and Trumps around us. Good afternoon, evening to everybody from Tel Aviv. Shalom, and we'll be in touch. Bye.